Think about the word illuminate. It has many meanings, but I'm going to focus on three. Number one, to supply something with light. Number two, very different, to make something clear and easier to understand. And third, even different, something that is intellectually or spiritually enlightened. And to be enlightened, it does help to have some kind of innate intelligence. And while intelligence comes in many forms, including emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence, what if you could apply artificial intelligence to illuminate an entire world of endless possibilities, to better understand the world around us, and to develop tools which shine a light on all of the elements necessary to change it? Our guest today has a mission to illuminate those endless possibilities, integrating artificial intelligence or machine learning for a variety of reasons for a variety of companies. And as an innovator herself, she shines lights not only on software and hardware necessary to make changes in artificial intelligence, but created a global community connecting people in the AI space, and it's called Illuminate AI. And the mantra of this organization: learn from each other, inspire one another, grow together. And my guest is my friend, in full disclosure, my former student, who I am so happy to be collaborating with. And her name is Aishwarya Srinivasan. And Aishwarya, welcome to A Climb to the Top.
It's absolute pleasure for me to see you and, to collaborate with you on this platform.
Well, thank you very much. And I am grateful for the time you've taken to come on to the show. When a lay person like me, who's not an engineer or a data scientist, when I hear the word artificial intelligence, it conjures up something I can't understand. So for many of the people who are coming onto the show who may be as dumb as me, what is this thing? How do you explain it?
I would like to negate that point that anybody is dumb, because with artificial intelligence, we are trying to give the power of thinking to machines. That's what artificial intelligence is. We want machines to make their own decisions rather than having hard-coded solutions. So previously, most of the solutions that we had, which were even computerized, were hard-coded. Like humans were feeding in that logic of operations into the computers, but now we are trying to build computers which can think for themselves, and that's what's happening with artificial intelligence.
And when we think about it, it sounds like a very broad scope. How do you narrow it in a world that makes it seem practical for a consumer?
Indeed, as you pointed out, artificial intelligence is a very, very, very wide scope. Data science or machine learning is just like a very small part of it. Artificial intelligence can range from anything, right from like the Google Nest that you have at home, or like the Alexa that you have at home, or even a smart refrigerator, or any kind of washing machine that's able to sense how much load is there in the machine and able to detect how long the cycle should be. So any of these applications could be artificial intelligence, right? So machine learning is just like a very small subset of artificial intelligence. The applications of AI can be ranging from automobiles, or like into automation, or even into like smaller software based applications using which we navigate every day.
Right. And when we consider your background, Aishwarya, what I know, a couple things come to mind. And if you look Aishwarya up on LinkedIn, a few keywords come up: data science, engineer. But you work for this company that I think is over 100 years old, a company that touches as many of us in our lives, and it's called IBM. And we think about IBM historically as Big Blue, and it created all these machines in the past. But you now work for IBM in the mission of innovation. Tell us what you do.
So right now I'm in a role which is called AI and ML Innovation Leader, which is first of its kind role in IBM itself. As you
Cool.
mentioned, IBM.
Congrats. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great.
So as you mentioned, right, like IBM is a 100-year-old company. There have been processes and things working in a certain way, but with changing times, IBM also is changing the way they are conducting their business, the way they are communicating with the customers, and the way they are producing content and services. So my role at IBM is working together with the product team, with the sales team, with the marketing team, and with the data science team. So it's a cross-functional role, and I'm trying to use my skills as a data scientist to make better products, make the products being very useful or helpful for growing businesses, and make sure that all the marketing piece is also tied together, because the best kind of products do need to be marketed well as well. So yes, I'm sort of like interconnected with all these different teams and working cross-functionally.
Great. Now, before we get back to your roots from India that brought you to New York and then to California, just tell us about your program of study where we met in the classroom at Columbia. It is the School of Engineering. What was your master's degree in?
So I did my master's in data science, which was Columbia was one of the very few schools back then which was offering masters in data science, which had very specific focus and courses with respect to like data science and machine learning.
Hmm?
So that's what I did.
Right. And then at the undergraduate level, what did you study that led you to this path?
So my undergraduate studies was in computer science and engineering, but early on through my first year of engineering, I did connect with a lot of folks in the US and all across different countries. And I got to know about something called data science. That was just blooming. Everybody was researching about it. There was no
Right.
hype of it in the industry, but most of it was in research papers. And this isn't something which is a new concept, right? Like machine learning or the models that we talk about right now, they have probably been there since 50s. But
Right.
what's happening now is that the gap between the resource availability to run these kind of algorithms have changed. Now we do have the resources, and that's when the second wave of machine learning came up, where we started using these technology into practice. So I started learning about this in my undergraduate studies. I was very interested in this space. So I did my minors in data science and machine learning while I was in my undergrad. And that sort of naturally transitioned for me to doing a master's in same.
So, in a way, you were on this path, maybe not exactly what you knew what it was going to be, but that this data science, AI, machine learning was prevalent in your mind as you thought about your career aspirations.
Yeah.
I want to go back to you have spoken fondly of your mom who worked at a college, and as a child you used to hang around. It describe because it seems to me this is where either you learned or you already had a curiosity, a matter of being inquisitive about the way things work. Share us your experience with your mom and the role she played that led you to having this wonderful life.
So both my parents were working, and they found it not very safe to leave a kid like as small as I was back then, alone at the house at the home. So I used to hang out a lot with my mother in her B school, and it sort of was very interesting for me because I was encountering MBA students every day. I was encountering professors, and my mom herself was working in as a research officer. So she was doing data science before it was cool. And funny story, she has been using IBM's software SPSS, which is still in the market, by the way, since
That's
1990.
a very
So
good thing. It's both nostalgic and quite a synchronicity between the world where you were as a child and now you're in a very different place. That's wonderful.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I was very interested in what she was doing. She was doing more of statistical learning or like causal inference. That's what she was researching upon back then. And she used to use all kinds of tools like Tally and IBM's SPSS, etc. And that kind of interested me a lot because she being not coming from a technical background, like she only studied till like 10th standard. And then after all her education was self study. So she got into the computer game pretty quick, I would say. And that sort of interested me. Like, I used to love hanging out with her in her office and learn from everything that she is doing and what other people were doing. So I got into the coding and programming background pretty early on in my life.
Right. Now, here you are, but there's something even more important, Aishwarya. As you and I were following each other, and it's fairly easy in this day and age with social media, particularly LinkedIn. Something struck me on your LinkedIn profile when we finally reconnected. You left New York, you're in the Silicon Valley. You and I kept in touch, and then I looked at this and I said, wow, what is this? And I looked at the word community and I looked at the word and I saw the mantra. I want to read it again, even though I opened with it. This community has a mantra of learn from each other, inspire one another, and grow together. That's just a lovely mission of any organization that you call Illuminate AI. Please tell us, what were the origins of Illuminate AI and what is the mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most of the experiences that I've had, even since I was in school or when I was in undergrad and even in masters, I cannot thank people enough for their role in my life, because I have always had mentors, and not just one mentor. I've always had multiple mentors throughout my life who have been helping me with various aspects of making decisions.
Right.
Right. So I truly believe that whatever I could, like, I'm avoiding a lot of major chaos has happened because I've had the right people helping me and helping me make the right choices.
Right.
That's where I feel there's so much to learn from each other. Like, all of us have had different experiences, and there's nothing better than learning from each other's experience. And that's what I wanted to do with the Illuminate AI community, because I have learned and grown in the data science field. I've had my struggles, I've had my challenges, and if there's a way that I can help the community and help people who want to establish their career in the space, and if me helping them or guiding them in the right direction saves them a few months, then nothing better than that.
That's beautiful. And then as you thought about it, did you create this on your own or did you have others who helped you to establish this?
So I started it off as a very small community, and I thought of just bringing together a few mentors who were my friends and colleagues, and somehow it just grew and it became out of control for me to just handle it. So now I have a team of 10, and all of us are working on different sections and building and growing the community and serving better mentees. So we have a lot of mentees, a lot of mentors who are working together and helping each other. And I cannot be more happy to say that we have had a lot of mentees who came with the mission of getting right jobs, getting into the grad school, etc. And a lot of
Right.
them have left the mentorship program. Initially, I used to think that, oh, like, it's a sad thing that people are leaving the program, but then giving it a second thought, I was saying to myself that it's indeed a very good thing that they came in with a mission and they could accomplish what they wanted, and
Right.
that's when they left. So
Well,
it was it was
what you're
beautiful.
describing, it's very much the circle of life. You create a space that allows people come into the circle and they came with good intentions and you given your time and your expertise to help them. But at some point, not that they feel that they don't need any more help, I'm hoping and accepting on faith that you have inspired each community member who decides to now leave, that they can help others draw them into their
Yes,
circle.
absolutely.
Does it work that way?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So once people who have gotten, and this is one of my like my mentees as well. So one of the person I used to mentor is now a mentor in Illuminate AI group, and he's also an ardent blogger. So he's writing a lot about data science articles, and he's been mentioning that he loves doing that because not only is he creating content, not only is he creating knowledge wealth, but it also encourages him to read more every single day.
Right. I would imagine in this field, it's a never ending string of information. But I want to get to a couple other things then. In this community, and I will, at the end of this show, we're going to let people know how they can get in touch with Illuminate AI. to be a part of this community? Is it because one is focused on AI, or if one isn't, but they're just curious? Is there any requirement?
So the mentors and mentee batches, the program itself is focused for people who have maybe a little bit of direction in what they want to do. But
Mhm.
we also have like a learners group, which is like bunch of people who are just curious about learning what's happening.
Yeah.
So that's an open group. Anybody can join that group and learn from all the resources that we are creating for everyone out there.
Right. And I would imagine they come into this circle and everything we read about artificial intelligence. What does, or even let me ask it another way. At IBM, do you talk about what does the future look like with machine learning? Do you even get that broad?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you do. And I wondered because someone has to design the future. I suspect it doesn't design itself. What are these things you talk about? Because I'd love to be a fly on that wall.
So, Chuck, one of the major things, right? Like, as you mentioned, like thinking about what's going to be the future. I'll tell you why it's very important because we are sort of preparing ourselves for what could go wrong. So
Good
that's
point.
that's what was more important because we have been talking a lot about trustworthy AI with like building ethical systems, how we can make the systems which are more transparent, and all of this are still somewhere theoretical because these are not applicable right now. These are not like 100% applied right now in the industries, but this is forcing into the future. Some of the pilot projects which companies have released have had these ill effects on the society, and that's what helps us extrapolate that in the future and say that what are the possibilities in the future and what could go wrong, how can we fix it if we know that this is something that's going to happen.
Can I examine that just a second? Because this is an interesting part, because there are those who would consider the machines are taking over. And yet there are others that are saying the history of the world is the history of war. It's the history of conflict where human beings, if we just set aside the technology, we have been at war with each other since we can remember. Now, I'd like to think that AI is going to do everything it can to help a more peaceful world, but it's an interesting approach where you have to think about what could go wrong.
Yeah.
And is what could go wrong either war, nuclear explosions, accidents, that tsunamis, are all these in addition to man-made events? Do you also what could go wrong on natural events and how to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the major concerns is with mental health, with how people are interacting with technology. That's what a lot of us are concerned about.
Right. Well, I would think we look around now in the world of this next generation coming up. They don't know what the world is like without this.
Yeah.
But what I know, and I'll show my age here because I teach undergraduates, but I also coach at the executive level. And what I'm finding is the generation that only knows a world of social media and apps, and they spend an inordinate amount of time inside the machines.
Yeah.
How do you help them to not be on machines all day?
Well, I try to like set examples myself because I'm still an old school person. I still do not like to spend a lot of my time on gadgets. So I still take my notes on pen and paper. I still read books which are like hardcover, making my notes all over them. So yeah, I've still not grown out of that. So the best way I can, preach anything to anybody is by example. So if people see me doing certain things certain way, and if they ask me that, hey, like, if, for me, right, like my phone is just, the only thing I do with my phone is call my mom and take calls. That's literally it. Like a lot of my friends do tell me that, hey, Aishwarya, you have barely 100 pictures in your gallery. And I'm like, yeah, I don't click pictures. And they tell me that you have gone to like so many beautiful hiking spots. And I'm like, yeah, it's for me to enjoy the nature, for me to capture that beauty with my eyes and not click for pictures everywhere I'm going. So that's just me. And it helps me, like, get out of that electronic stress. I don't know if that's even a word, but that's how I want to describe it, because I feel there is a lot of stress and anxiety which people might end up with if they constantly use technology far beyond what's needed. So that causes you to compare yourself with other people, have certain kinds of standards, and just look at everybody else thinking that, oh, they have a life in a certain way, whereas people are only portraying the best parts of their lives. So that sort of like brings your mental health down. So that's why I believe that, I try to like segregate myself from the social media content as much as possible.
Well, Aishwarya, I got to say, there's something really refreshing about a data scientist at IBM who takes notes with a pen and a paper. I thank you very much for setting that example. Second, what you're describing, when you're out on those mountains and you're in Yosemite, wherever you may be, you are present in that moment and you are taking in nature. When a lot of people are just taking pictures or snapping something, there is a lot of social judgment that has occurred because people begin to read that, and it is causing a level of anxiety and depression. Unfortunately, as sad as it is, it seems rather prevalent in society. And while we don't want to blame necessarily the gadgets or the machines, we are very much in a world where this level of anxiety and stress is being accelerated or exacerbated by the machines. Are you conscious of that when you are building your future of the world? Is mental health somewhere in the horizon when you think about the world of artificial intelligence?
So I'm not a perfect person to answer that question because none of the technology that I'm building is B2C. It's mostly B2B technology that I'm building. But I've been reading a lot about like how platforms which are directly impacting users like you and me are being built, right? So I've been reading a lot of case studies about what the companies have to say about what they're building versus what governmental organizations have to say about what these technology can do. It's at any point in time, I think it's a collaborated effort. Like companies being technology companies cannot take responsibilities of everything going on. So I was just reading an article yesterday in which one of the social media company was saying that how do you expect us to moderate who are the people who are using the application? These rules like internet policies are something that needs to be coming from the government, which makes regulations around what's the age group that teenagers can get onto such platforms. How do you moderate teenagers' privacy versus giving their parents enough insights into what they're using the technology for? So it's going to be a collaborated effort between the governmental organization and like having a world forum and working on the standards and like including the technology companies into it. It cannot be a standalone decision by technology companies. That's what I feel.
No, and I appreciate that. It just seems as we look, the world is changing so rapidly. We're now putting people in space at a rate we've not seen before, and it seems to be coming more. I suspect the machine learning plays a part in getting a rocket up into space. Do you guys, do you think of that stuff?
I personally haven't worked on a rocket model ever. That'll be an interesting thing. And if at all anybody is watching and you have an opportunity where you can offer me to work on rockets, I am very much interested to do that. But yes, yeah, like everything I feel with the automation, with data science especially, it has given the power to people to make informed decisions rather than having perspective based decisions, or like including human emotions or human perspective into that. Now we have a standard on judging what decisions to make. Now we have like a more data driven approach that we see in almost every industry.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. Well, let's finish up here. We have many people who are listening that may be interested in pursuing careers in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Yet, there is so much confusion around what do I major in? What kind of engineer do I become? Should I be a computer engineer and leave it broad? Let's speak to them. If there is someone who is considering that, what do you want that individual to think, feel, and even do when they are considering artificial intelligence, either as a major or as a career?
So one of my mantras that has I would say like helped me decide my majors in is to be a jack of all trades initially. before I got to understand what's the thing which I want to major in.
Start with the foundation.
Yeah. So I have, when I was in my undergrad, I have explored a lot of different technologies. Like there were weeks when I was curiously engrossed in making time series models. There were days when I was focused only on financial data. There were days when I was focused only on like computer vision models, etc. I've tried a lot of different things before kind of figuring out what is my focus and like what do I want to pursue further. So it's just like tasting out everything that's out there, keeping an open mind, just gathering all the knowledge which is available, and then making an informed decision on what's that you like and what is that one thing which you are fine doing every single day.
Right. Yeah. I find many of my students, Aishwarya, they want to do everything. I want to do this. I want to triple major and double minor. Sounds to me like you should pick one thing. Is that your preferred? Yeah. Pick. Yeah.
Yes.
Even though
so I've tried, like I've given fair chance to every technology which interested me at first. Like initially, I used to think that maybe this is going to be interesting for me. So I sort of like tried and tested out everything. And then once I didn't like something, I would stop pursuing that. So it was, I did know that I want to get into data science, but even data science or machine learning is a very vast field. So finding a specialization within that, I read a lot of things. I read a lot of research. I read a lot of perspective of people who are in research and academia versus people who are in industry and working on specific use cases.
Right. Okay, let's finish up with Illuminate AI. Where do they find you or the organization, and how do they get involved?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach out to me. Okay. Illuminate AI, I will be happy to share the link to the website, and you can go through the website. There are the next cohort is going to be coming out soon. So through end of October, we're going to be having the third cohort of mentorship program. So if you're interested in that, feel free to apply. We also have AI Guild sessions. That's basically a series of technical deep dives into the industrial use cases of machine learning and AI. So if you're interested to present in that, you are feel free to apply to that. And all the content that I create, everything is free of cost for everybody to access. So there's a lot of resources on the website which you can use.
And I suspect your community, I saw it as I was prepping for the show. How many countries are represented here? Do you even know?
That's a good question. I haven't really ever checked that. It's a very good question. I should maybe make an infographic on that.
Well, it's just an interesting one, as I saw many of the people who comment on your post, they seem to be all over the world. It's this wonderful global community.
That's what I have seen. Like, interestingly, I've been reached out by people from all across the globe, like people from country I have not heard of. So that's sort of interesting because people reach out to me and I'm like, wait, what is that country? And then I like go look up in the map where that country is. And it's been like in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, everywhere around the globe.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm Chuck Garcia. You have listened to A Climb to the Top, and thank you as always for tuning in. We have produced almost 95 shows, and it's been a pleasure, and we appreciate all of the comments. But to have wonderful guests like Aishwarya, who's out in the universe using her talent, her intelligence, her skills to be able to make a difference in the world, in her world of artificial intelligence. Aishwarya, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Chuck, for having me.
Right. It was a real pleasure. Signing off. Good night.